Thanks, man.
Pop culture with Pat. Is that right?
That's right. You got it.
Come look at Pop Culture with Pat. He's the best. Meet me at the docks, McGowan. If you're brave enough to go.
Would you be willing to trace all of this?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat.
I'll see you at the docks, McGowan. You're brave enough to go.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we have our second guest of 2021. He is a Next Karate Kid alumni, Michael Cavalieri. Thank you for coming on the show today, Michael. We're going to talk a little bit about the Karate Kid. First, we're going to talk about his film Ritornato. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
That's got to be with the Italian accent, Pat. Ritornato.
We're going to talk about this film that he actually wrote, produced, directed, basically, did a lot of things on this film. Really excited to talk to him about that. So it's great having him here today.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, guys. I'm so honored and privileged to be here with Pat. And thank you so much for supporting us, all the fans, watching that Karate Kid, the next Karate Kid. It's a wonderful, wonderful revisit for me to go back in time. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. And like I said, to start things off, where did the idea for your film, just kind of come from to begin things?
Okay, Ritornato was born out of the loss of my mother and my grandfather and my father, trying to search for myself. I was kind of lost. In a sense, I had lost my sister at a young age. And, I was struggling with my emotions, trying to figure out who I was. Where am I going next? So I wanted to go back to my roots. So I asked my fiance at the time, Maria, if she would come with me to Sicily. I've been to Italy, all over Italy, working as an actor, traveling, whatever. But so she said yes. And, we thought maybe we'd go and we see an address. So we'd see a street, possibly. I just wanted to walk in my grandfather's footsteps. You know what I mean? And it was the most incredible feeling. We left this beautiful resort town called Taormina in Sicily, up on top, and we traveled. I had a guide, translator actually, Vincenzo, and because I don't speak fluently, and I said to him, I want to go to Limina, and he goes, "Why do you want to go to Limina?" I said, "I want to go to Limina because my grandfather's from Limina." He goes, "But Michele, nobody goes to Limina." I says, "I go to Limina." So he goes, "Okay." So he takes us from Taormina, this beautiful resort town, right? And we start driving down towards the beach, and then we kind of ascend up this really, really windy, crazy dirt road about, I'd say, 1,000, they say 1,000 meters, which is really high up. And I'm seeing like guys with the sheep in the hills, and I'm hearing, goats, and I'm like, what is going on? My wife's getting car sick because the car's going like this. But we pull up and I see the sign of Limina, and that's the town my grandfather was raised and born and raised. And I can't tell you the feeling that I had, Pat. When I got out of the car, and I jumped up on this pylon, and the sign was there. And if you see behind me right there, that's me the first time touching the sign.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I was crying like a baby. And I just said, "Mom, Grandpa, I'm here. I made it." And because I always promised her when she was very ill, we used to have conversations about, my grandfather and wanting to go back to Sicily. And she never had the chance to do that because she was sick. So I promised her I would do it. And so I did it. And lo and behold, we went to the municipal building, which is like the first place you go to see if there's somebody there that might know you or know somebody, whatever. And I walk in and I say the name Aldobrandi. Agostino Aldobrandi is my grandfather's name. And all of a sudden, this lady looks at me, this really heavy-set lady in a black dress. Not a stereotypical thing, but this is true. And she looks at me, she goes, "Aldobrandi?" And I go, "Si." She goes, "Un momento." And I see her dialing on phone, right? And I'm thinking, what's she doing? 5 minutes later, this guy walks in. He goes, "Who's Aldobrandi?" I said, "Me." He goes, "Come with me. I know everything." So I look at my wife. I says, And I said, Vincenzo, I said, well, I guess we go with him. He knows everything, right? So we must have walked across the street to a cafe. It may have been about 100 steps. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. We walk into the cafe and I'm standing in the doorway and I see this man with glasses and he's got a cane and he's crying. And I'm thinking in my head, you know, internally, why is this guy staring at me crying? I don't know why. And I sat down at the table and he wasn't able to speak. He had, I guess it was a Parkinson's and whatever it was. He was about 80, 89, 90 years old at the time. So we sit down at the coffee table in this little cafe. And, you know, I don't speak fluent Italian, so it was very difficult. So I have the translator and they're going back and forth in Sicilian. I'm like, well, hold on a second, guys. Speak English. Parla inglese, parla inglese. So they finally start to explain the story to him. And I'm like, wait a minute. I never heard of this story. I don't know what you're talking about. Meanwhile, the old man is whispering to this other guy who came in to get me in the municipal building. He's whispering in his ear and he's telling the translator, and it's going around in a circle. And the old man is bawling, crying. Finally, I get so frustrated. I say, guys, please speak English. So the guy stands up and he goes, okay, so your grandfather was Salvatore. And he goes through the story and I'm looking at him and I'm like, and it's going through my mind. I'm like, what am I hearing right now? And at the end of the story, the older man that was 90 years old happens to be my grandfather's brother.
Oh, wow.
So he's my great uncle. And my grandfather was my life. So here I am now with the thing closest to me in the world. I'm sitting next to the thing that's closest, the bloodline. And I broke down in tears. He broke down in tears. We hugged each other. And that whole day, they showed me around the town, took me to my grandfather's house, which is in my movie. I used this actual house. It's a broken down house, but it's in the movie. And to the cemetery, they talked about my lineage and who's my great grandfather and this one and that one. And I said to myself, as I looked outside, you know, from the cemetery, Pat, it's just really high up in the mountain. I'm like, this is gorgeous. I have to do a movie. And that's how it started. And I came home and I was so moved by them and everybody in the village, and they were writing me and I was writing them. And you know, and I said, I'll be back. I said, I promise I'll come back next year. He goes, no. I said, I promise I come back. So I went back again. And the second time I had written like a half a script about it. And I never wrote before. I don't even know how to write my name. So I was writing everything on paper and my wife was trying to put it in the computer. And so I went back and we needed a Wi-Fi to travel.
Yep. So
we went into this shop, this, you know, electronics shop to get a Wi-Fi. And I meet this guy and I said, do you know a cameraman in the village? He goes, I have a friend. So he gives me the guy's number. And at the same time he gave me the guy's number, my cousin goes, Cugino, we must go. And I totally took the number, but it just went out the window from, you know.
Yeah.
We left. I went back one more time with a full script written now, Pat, right? Went back to that same Wi-Fi place, the same guy. And he goes, oh my God, Michele, how are you? I said, what is that guy's name? And he gives me his name. His name was Fabrizio. And I said, I'm going to call him right now. I called him. He was literally like down the Longomare, down on the beach, like lived right there. We meet, we have a lunch together. And then I asked him if Sunday he could meet me in the village in Limina, if I can go through the thing, I want to shoot a movie. Now, meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to raise money for a movie? But where am I going to get this money from, right?
Yep.
So now I think, wait, I got to change the plan. I got to shoot a little bit shorter version of the full-length feature that I wrote because I got to do this movie. If you wait for somebody to give you money, you're never going to get anything done. So I started going through the movie with him, and it's like I shortened everything. I said, I want to do this, and this is what I see. He's like, wow, that's good. That sounds good. So we went through the whole thing. I went back to America, and I started to craft a shorter version of it. And a friend of mine said, listen, there's this grant, and you should really, really try to, he read my script, because you should really try and send your stuff in. And I had planned with Fabrizio to shoot in September, to start shooting in September. And we were calling every day, talking every day, from Italy, Sicily to California, talking, setting up, I need this, I need that, doing auditions over the phone with people. I'm Zooming auditions with him, crazy. So we're all set. And it's a little bit difficult when you're speaking in Sicily. They're a little bit slower. They take their time for them to get back to you. It's the whole production. So, and you don't want to change the schedule. And then once they settle on the schedule, you don't want to offend anybody. So we had it set. 6 weeks later, I win the grant by the Russo brothers, who are, the directors of Avengers Endgame and all the Marvel movies. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough money to get me there and cover the crew. And what I did was I really, really condensed the film. So it's like an hour film. Yeah. And we shot it in 5.5 days or 5 days.
Wow.
And nobody speaks English, Pat. It's all the local actors. So do you know the term neo-realistic?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so neo-realistic filmmaking is like the early century when in Italy and Sicily, when it was very, very poor, they used to use real people. And one of the most wonderful directors, Vittorio De Sica, did a movie called Umberto D, Shoeshine, Bicycle Thief. These are classic movies with all real people. So I said, that's what I love. That's what I'm going to do. So I hired all people from the village to play all the parts. And we became like a family. It was an amazing experience. My cousin, Turi, he owns a panini truck, right? On the beach. So what happened was I would call him from America, say, are you doing good? I sent the script. No, I got it, cousin. No problem, Cugino. He speaks a little bit English. He goes, no problem. I got it. So when I arrive, I go right to the panini truck. That's the first thing I do. I go to the panini truck. I see him, what's going on. Sometimes I surprise him. I don't tell him I'm coming. I just show up. He's like, Cugino. So he runs. He goes, here's the script, cousin. No problem. So I said, okay, let's just read a few pages. So he starts to read. He has no idea what's going on. No idea. So I said, cousin, no good. He goes, what do you mean? I says, we must rehearse. He goes, what's rehearse? I said, we rehearse. You come to the apartment every day and we study. You go, I don't need to study. I said, you need to study. So we would meet, for 3 or 4 days we met with the actors and we would hang around and we'd talk and we'd have lunch and just kind of talk about the scenes. And I had my translator with me. We would talk about this and that. And then we went and we did it. And he was phenomenal. He's phenomenal.
And I was going to ask you, that was kind of going to be like one of my questions, just like what led to the decision to use the people that were there instead of using like actors, like bringing in like actors and stuff.
Well, here's the thing too, Pat. You think of it like this. I always think in my head, if I'm going to hire actors, it's going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
Really expensive. And what I felt was a really beautiful gift was that I was giving something back to them, which was to show this beautiful land in a way that filled my heart and would fill other people's heart in a way. And it's showing, I wanted to show the most respect for them, the Sicilian people, the Sicilian culture. So I think just by me doing that, they never expected a man from America to come there and tell a story about them. And they were so appreciative. And so that was one of the things. It was easy for me because they wanted so badly to be involved. So, and I was it was the greatest experience of my life.
I think it just like, you talking about like the film and everything and just how personal it was like to you. And just having those, real people be like, in the film adds just that extra layer of authenticity to it as well that you wouldn't get with if you're having, no matter who it is as an actor, you wouldn't get
exactly
someone from the village.
It's funny because, I'm a person of integrity. I really passionate about things that I do. And it wasn't about the money. I don't care about money. I paid out of my own pocket. It was about the experience and about the respect for them and for my mother and for my grandfather, their memory. So I never look at a project as I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. I looked at the project as purely artistic and passionate, and a love for the culture, the Sicilian culture, and for that town that my grandfather came from, and of course my mother. So nothing was going to stop me shooting this film. No one, and I couldn't tell you how many people told me, you never wrote before, you never directed before. Yeah, you act, you're a good actor, but how are you going to do this? My wife did the production. My wife was the set designer. My wife did the costume. I did all the breakdown, all the shots. I did all the DP shots. You know what? If you want to do something bad enough, fans out there, if you want to do it bad enough, you can do it. Trust me, you got to want it. And that's what we did. And I was blessed. You know?
Ask you too, something else kind of tying into, all this as well. Just, what kind of led, because it could have been easy to be like, oh, you know what, I have this idea of what I want to do. I can have someone else, shoot it. I can have someone else write it. What led to the decision of, you wanted to be the one to write this, to, direct it and everything?
That's a great question. That's a really great question, Pat. Nobody's ever asked me that question. And it was a very tough decision for me because I was doing the feature. And I had somebody else maybe that I thought was going to direct it, and I was going to star in it. And then when I got put in a situation, and I have a couple of successful friends that I knew that said, hey, wait a minute, you know this better than anybody else. Why are you letting somebody else direct your vision? I said, well, I never did it before. He goes, but you can do it. You can do it. So it came down to really what happened was when we got the grant, we had to shoot the film before September 1st, because I was slating for, I said, I got to do this now, because who's going to do it? I got to direct it. I knew, this is what I knew, Pat. I knew that my wife, Maria, was a really great actress. I knew that we were going to be able to hold the fort down. What I mean by that is that we would work on our stuff and our scenes, which were mostly our scenes, get that down to a T, rehearse it, know the shots, know what you want. And then, get there. And if all failed, we know that we could always turn the camera on us and be ready and prepared. But I felt like I wrote to people. I wrote to my actors and actresses. I wrote them in Italian a history of all the characters. I sent them pictures. I gave them a vision of, I actually sent them the actual moments of when it happened to me, the actual story. I sent them a video so they can watch it and understand the essence of what I wanted. Now, I wrote it in English. Sometimes in Italian, it comes out a little different than what the English would be. Yeah. And I would talk to them, and it's a really important thing that really, I think really great directors do, is that they hire somebody who's right for the part, and they let them do what they do. And if there's a note to give or just say about the scene, this and that, but you let them flourish in their, and I made them feel comfortable in the environment. And I think that's really what led to the success. It's like, I didn't make them feel uncomfortable in a place. They knew the cafe, they knew the scene, they knew what we needed to do. And listen, it wasn't easy. I mean, I was shoveling dirt, in the first day was 115 degrees.
Yes.
You have locations and you got to make this and that. So it wasn't easy, but it was a joy in a sense. Even though it was difficult, it was great.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for that town, Limina and Santa Teresa, and the Sicilian culture, and my cast and crew are incredible people. I'm so blessed to have that experience. And I wrote a second part. So I'm actually want to do it as a series, like an idea as like 1 hour shows.
Okay.
So I wrote a second part, and I also wrote another movie that's there, and a third one. So I have 3 or 4 other projects that if I ever get back there with the pandemic. And also I want to say that we were chosen for the Taormina Film Festival, which is a very, very prestigious film festival. We were the only American film chosen because they loved it so much, because it showed the honorability and the respect of somebody going back from America to their land and saying, thank you so much. And so we got bounced out because of the pandemic, but they promised us we'd be there next year. So hopefully I can get there maybe in June or something.
I'll say that's cool. Yeah, I know with the pandemic, unfortunately, making things a little difficult for, obviously everyone, all around the world. But Yeah, can you also, just as far as, I mean, doing this whole experience, writing and directing and everything like that, it just gives, I think it, gives you even a better appreciation of how all this, this stuff works. And it, like,
Yeah.
this makes it worth it, in the end.
Right.
As far as, because I mean, I know like myself, like I've like joked about, shooting like a short films or like things like that. I've
Sure.
like thought about it, but I've just like I've never sat down and like actually done it to this
It's
point.
tough. Yeah.
But I mean, I know a lot of like other like independent filmmakers. What was the most like challenging thing as far as this whole process goes for you, and what would you give for advice to, for first time directors, writers?
Okay, well, the most challenging thing for me was I was put under the gun because of the grant that I won. They wanted the film finished by a certain time, and it was really difficult for me because it really wasn't the cut that I wanted to give them, because I was in Sicily, and the one editor that I was supposed to have, he couldn't do it, so I ended up with somebody who was not as experienced, and it was very difficult. We got it done, but one of the most difficult things, I think this is interesting, for me was they kept telling me, you got to cut this film. You got to cut this film. You got to cut it down to 12 minutes. You got to cut 18 minutes if you want. I said, you know what, guys? I don't really care about the film festivals. I don't really care about, this is a present. This is a letter to a beautiful culture, the Sicilian culture from me. So listen, somebody will accept it. Somebody will like it. And if they don't, I'll deal with it then. So that was a very difficult decision because I had a lot of people telling me not to do something. And I was like, I had to stick to that. I didn't want to cut anybody out of the movie because to me, it was more important to me to keep my word as a man to them and to show Sicily in the best way that I could. And with the actors that I used in the story. And yeah, we had to cut things, of course, and trim things down. But we tried as much as we can to kind of keep it in one piece. We did go on to cut it to a 20-minute version. The girl from Honey Boy, Monica, she's fantastic. She edited Honey Boy. She came in and did a nice, beautiful 20-minute edit. But you lose a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Monica Salazar, she's wonderful, but she's so talented. I was like, wow, she came up with stuff I didn't think about. So she gave me an idea for the other version that I want to do, which is possibly do the 2-hour version or do another, like I said, another 1 hour extended version of this one, like a series.
Yep.
So she was so wonderfully talented. And, when you're in the editing process and I had a really, really, really wonderful friend, my friend Peter Schenk, who's extremely talented. And he was like a godsend to me and helped me with so many things. And I wouldn't be able to have done it without him. And he would say, Mikey, maybe we should do this. And I would think about it. I said, I don't agree. But sometimes you have to give in because he's an experienced and very, very articulate, smart man. And sometimes you got to stay fast to what you are. And I'll tell you a funny story. So there's a little church in the village, and that's their life. The saint in the church. So we're in final editing, and I'm like, he's like, we got to cut that out. I said, Pete, they'll flog me in the streets if I cut that out. I said, we must leave the church. He goes, no, it doesn't. You don't need it. I said, Peter, we need the church. Need the church. No, but Mikey, the touching the hands too much. That's their culture. They have feasts. San Filippo feast is about the church and the saints. So I held my ground. Thank God I did. Because the first time I showed it to my cousin, he goes, oh, the saint, how beautiful. It was the first thing they said. So, things like that in your artistic view, you have to keep. And then as far as a director and to tell a first-time director like me, what I did was I watched a lot of classic movies and a lot of Italian cinema. And also I read a lot of books, Elliot Kazan's book on directing. And I read a lot of books and my mind works like in a video, kind of like I can cut, like I see things like in a way that I already had a vision of what I wanted. So I was able to see things. And that's a talent that I have. Or I think that I have maybe, that I see things and I feel an edit already. Sometimes I'm wrong, sometimes I'm right, but there's an instinct. But, what I would say is I was struggling because I didn't want to do, Pat, the stuff that they offer or they want you to do, which is stereotypical, characters. I was having a hard time. That's why I left the business for a while. I wasn't interested in doing that. And I would tell young actors and young directors to be creative, to write, to experience, to shoot something. And even if it's not perfect, get the experience, get the knowledge. Take your career in your own hands and create your own stuff. Because I wanted to do this many years ago. My experience with my New York family, my mom and the loss of my mom and my conversations, I wanted to do that 15 years ago. But either I wasn't brave enough or I wasn't ready enough. I'm not sure which one it was. So when I got to the other point, I said, I remember looking in the mirror one day, I said, if you don't do this, it's a shame. It's a shame on you, Michael. You failed yourself because you can do it. And I said that to myself. And I'm a very willful person. So if I set my mind to it, it's infectious and people jump on. So my advice is to write, even if you don't know, you think you can write or write something, shoot something, have that experience. Even if you don't like the experience of directing or writing, have the experience, because it can only help you as an actor or a producer or a writer or as a director. You need to be in that experience, that war of trying to get it done. I did a film many years ago with the director, who the guy who wrote Green Book. And I remember shooting this film, and we shot it in 12 days in a warehouse in downtown LA. And when you do independent films, and that was when, Reservoir Dogs was really came into play, and it was a similar film like that. It's called In the Kingdom of the Blind, The Man with One Eye is King. So Paul Winfield, Michael Biehn, William Peterson, good cast. And it was a tough experience. It was a really hard experience to do it, and emotional, because it was an emotional character. But you learn a lot about yourself and how you can do things under duress. And I knew that I was able to do this film under duress. I believed enough in me that I knew I could handle it. And I believe, because I've done it before as an actor. Now, as a director, it's a little bit more, but when I was, I would prepare myself as an actor, and it actually helped me in a way because I didn't think about it. Just went, okay, let's do it. Action, and I would do the scene. When you're an actor, sometimes you get yourself so riled up, you're like, and you go in the scene and you're not authentic. So with all the rehearsal and all the preparation, you just let it go, and you just leave it, and good things happen, And we had a great experience. So young actors out there, wherever you are, give it a shot. Write, direct. Don't be afraid. Don't wait too long like I did, because you know what? I wish I would have did it 15 years earlier, because it would have really opened up a lot of doors. By writing now and directing, it's opened up so many other doors for me. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, these people approach me here and there, and we'll talk about this, we'll talk about your screenplay and da-da-da. And you have your own material that you can try to do. Like, I can go and try to do this film again, or I can show it to people, say, hey, you want to do this or whatever. But I know I could do it because I did it once. Yep. And once you do something once, Pat, you could do it again.
Yeah. So it's all really just initially, getting out there, doing it, getting that experience. And like you said, just really being also, as like an artist, being true to yourself, as much as you can. Because if you're just doing stuff to do stuff, it's like, you're probably not, your heart isn't going to be in that. So
I agree. I
totally understand like where you're coming from as far as like
yeah.
And I know you said, so you're in early production, I believe, on part 2. You said
Ritornato 2 is Vincent, second part to this one you'll see. I'm going to do all the fans out there, we're going to do a virtual screening in the next month or so, 2 months. I'll let you know. You'll post it. And there'll be a continuation of the character, which I think is going to be really great. It'll be a different take on it, but it'll be really interesting. And then I have another film that I'm really, really excited about that is a historic project that I'm writing that not many people know the story, which I'm really excited about. It's good. I've already made some contact with people in Sicily about doing that, and they're really excited. So, you know, I wrote another, I have a few other projects and I keep writing. I really love it. And I feel good because you know, being an actor is a very difficult thing. And, you know, the phone doesn't ring. People think, oh, you're in the Karate Kid. That's not how it works. Not how it works. And for young actors, I say again, you got to control your career. Don't wait for the career to happen to you. You make your career. So, yeah, so we got a couple of things going behind it. I'm excited. You know that I won the World Fest in Houston. I won the New York Filmmakers Audience Award. I was in many, many film festivals, nominated Best Short Award, and so I'm very proud of it. And now we move on. We move to the next thing.
Yeah, as I say, it's been quite the incredible journey for you as far as, you know, just like the first film. And I know you said you got a couple other, you know, projects like all lined up and everything. I feel like it's when you're in that groove, you just gotta like keep going and keep, you know, putting out, you know, writing down new information, getting new stuff made. Cause it's like when you're in that groove, you gotta keep going.
You know, it's funny. I was able to, I'm sure you heard of the Columbus Day Parade in New York.
Yep.
Huge. So I was asked to show my film to the members of the Columbus Citizens Foundation, which is a wonderful, wonderful place, a townhouse in Manhattan that they have, a big, beautiful villa. And a lot of the people were from Limina, the town of my grandfather. They were descendants of it. And a lot of people were Sicilian. A lot of people were from near that village. And I mean, the feelings were so palpable that night when they were watching the film. They were like, oh, that's the thing. And people, you know, Sicilian, they were crying and laughing, and they got it. And that's why I did it. That made the whole experience for me worth it.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Just like, oh, sorry to cut you off there, Michael.
No.
I've heard that too, as far as just like, as, you know, as like a director or anyone involved in like, you know, like a film, that a lot of times when you go to these festivals and you get to be there in that moment and get to see these people's, you know, their like first initial reactions to the film, that's like what you said, it's really what makes it like all worth it, because you get to see, you know, the people that you made this film for, you get to see, you know, how they're reacting to the film.
It's a niche film, you know. It's really, you know, it's really about, and it could be any of us going to see our roots. So that's the really essence of it. But this particular group of people will respond more because that's their culture. So, you know, some people get it. You know, a lot of times the American culture is a little bit, they want fast food. They want to, this isn't that. It's a little bit, you know, more plodding along, but it's a fascinating, if you take the time to listen to what's going on and the confusion, it's fascinating. And that's why I wanted to keep it, because I didn't want to get right to the point. It's like, this is how it happened. Yeah. This is what it was. And I was really proud to show it there at the Columbus Citizens Foundation, and the people from Limina, and it was just wonderful for me. And they've asked me to go back again. I have another film that's going to be on Amazon shortly, The Stonecutter. That's really a beautiful film. Yeah, you know, people have been really, really kind to me. I'm very, very honored and privileged to be in this position to do something that means something to so many people. I'm on the board now of a few things, a thing called Splendid Sicily, which is a cultural museum in Sicily. I'm also, I became town ambassador of Limina by Discover.Italy, Discover Italy, which now I'm going to become vice president in the USA. So I'm very, very excited about that. And, you know, it all goes back to one thing, Pat. If you're brave enough to do it and go out there and let yourself out there a little bit, you'd be surprised how many other people are out there waiting with open arms to give you a hug.
I was gonna say, like, man, just like deciding you wanted to do this project, just listening to all these different doors and avenues, connections made from doing this film. That's insane.
You know, it's like, you know, and even with Karate Kid, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. So I'll bring it up. The next Karate Kid. Think about it. I mean, at the time that Ritornato was becoming successful, or I was finishing it, my wife said to me, she goes, honey, she goes, you know this show Cobra Kai? I'm like, well, what's that? She goes, you don't know the show? I said, it's Karate Kid. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, they're doing a series. I said, come on. Now, I think it was on another channel and it wasn't successful, or it was successful. I don't know. And then maybe a lot of people didn't know it wasn't on a main platform.
Yeah, it was YouTube actually. YouTube, and
Okay.
then now it's on Netflix.
Yeah, no, now I know. Of course, now I know. So she goes, they're doing this thing and you got to watch it. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So, and then she goes, you got to be on Instagram. You don't know what's going on in life. So she set up an account for me, and I started getting calls like from all over the world. Are you Michael Cavalieri? Are you the guy, Ned from Next Karate Kid? I love you. You're great. Are you going to be on the Cobra Kai? I'm like, wow, what's this? So I said, I got to watch the show a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So I watched, I watched a few episodes to see what it was, and I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was interesting what they were doing, and Billy and Ralph were doing a great job, and the way they were shooting it, and had Mr. Miyagi hanging over the whole series, which I thought was fantastic. And yeah, so at the same time that was going on, I mean, Ritornato, all of a sudden, the Next Karate Kid, the people are contacting me that way. So I'm meeting a lot of people in that respect, and they're asking me about, like yourself, about my film and So it's been a fascinating time. And I got to say, all you guys that interview, you're wonderful.
Thanks, man.
We would not be standing here talking about our selfish experiences as actors and our beautiful experiences, honestly. And if it wasn't for guys like you, where would we be? We'd be nothing without you guys. So I say this a lot in interviews, and I really mean it, is that I'm just so grateful that you take an interest in us, and the fans take an interest in us, and I'm humbled by that. I really am. And I spend an awful lot of time when people write me, I spend more time than probably I should. And I talk with them, and, they send me a picture. And I do that because I have a lot of respect for them. And it means a lot to me to be in the position I'm in. I feel privileged to be in a huge franchise, one of the greatest franchises in the world. And to be part of that history is really, really incredible for me. So I think it's my job to pay it back to the fans, and to be a gentleman, and to say, hey guys, thank you. So
yeah, man, Michael, thank you for for the kind words. I really appreciate that. It's nice when you have guys such as yourself, or or girls that they're just so willing to open up about
sure
previous experiences. And I know, like, for myself, I love doing this because I've ever since I was like a kid, I've been a big movie, just like pop culture, like, fan in general.
Sure.
I love, and not everyone I know is like into like the behind the scene details, but myself, I love hearing the behind the scenes.
All right, I'm going to give you good stuff.
Yeah. So I love that kind of stuff. It just fascinates me. I read, movie magazines, and, watch tons of films and stuff like that. So I love when we get like the behind the scene features and stuff like that, because it's like, oh, what went into filming this scene, or like, how did this come about? That stuff is just so cool. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love doing this stuff too.
Yeah, it's incredible. People ask me, all the time. I don't know if you have a specific question in mind. If you do, I'll answer it. Some interesting stuff happens there. So shoot whatever you want. I'll give you an answer.
So as far as, because we kind of brought it up now, as far as the the next Karate Kid, obviously, a big film that you were a part of. As far as just kind of how did you get the role? What was the audition process like to start things off?
Well, let's put it this way. I wasn't a very, very popular actor at the time. I didn't have many jobs. I didn't do so well in auditions, and it's a long story. I'll tell you a quick story. I was when I first came here, I was slated. I met this gentleman that was a director, and I told the story in a previous interview, and it was really funny. He started to take a liking to me, and he goes, we had met several times through a friend, and he says, Michael, he goes, come up to the house. So I went up to his house, and he slid a script across the table to me, and he goes, we're going to do this movie. He goes, I was writing a Western, but when I met you, I want to do this movie. And it was called Lookin' Italian, right? And I'm like, all right. And it was about all my experiences that I told him about my dad and my uncle, Lo and behold, and I'll make that part short, it didn't work out because the guy wanted me to audition for my own life. So I said, I'm not doing that. I'm a man of integrity. It's my story. I'm not doing that. Anyway, at the same time, I'm in Gold's Gym. And Matt LeBlanc and I used to audition against each other quite a bit. And we were friendly, you know. We see each other, hey, man, whatever. And I never forget, I was on a stationary bicycle. And he's like, Michael. I say, hey, man, what's going on? He goes, listen. He goes, man, I just read for this thing. He goes, you're perfect for it. I said, what's that? And he goes, it's this movie called Looking Italian. Did you hear about it? I said, no, I didn't hear about it. I said, that sounds good. I'll check into it. Meanwhile, you know, I know it's my life. Anyway, at the same time, I get the audition for the Karate Kid. When this is going on, when I see Matt, I hadn't had the audition yet. Then like the next 4 days, I get that audition, the first audition. And I had a small manager. His name was Stephen Adams at the time, a wonderful man. And he called me, goes, I was in the gym. He goes, you got to go. And I'm like a loudspeaker here. Michael Cavalieri, I had to run to the desk. You got to come home. You got to go to an audition. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you got an audition at 3:30. I'm like, all right. He goes, wear a leather jacket and jeans. I said, okay. Goes, pick up the sides when you get there. So I run over there. I never forget, I was at Warner Brothers in Burbank. So I go there, get the sides. There's no name or title on the sides or anything. So I read the scene and I go in and I meet the casting director. Her name was Joy Todd. Really cool chick from New York. Really nice lady. I said to myself, all right, this is good. This is good. So we did the scene and she says to me, she goes, you work out? I said, yeah. She goes, take your jacket off. I had a t-shirt on. She goes, oh, you look fit. She goes, you're an athlete? I said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So she goes, okay. She goes, I want you to come back next week at this time. I'm like, okay. So the following week, I go back, wear the same thing, do the same thing. And there was another 2 people there. And I read. Went back, didn't hear anything. About 3 weeks later, my manager gets a call. Calls me right away. They want to see me in front of the directors and producers. Now I'm like, okay. Wear the same thing, don't change. Don't do anything. Go in, do the audition, boom. I don't hear anything. Maybe 2 weeks later, he goes, they want to screen test you, And they had a couple actresses there, and then Hilary was there, and Jerry Weintraub was in the room, Chris Kane was there, and it came down to me and another guy. I don't want to say who it was, but he's gone on to be very, very successful. So anyway, we were both sitting there, never forget this, and on these little steps in Warner Brothers in front of this office. And I'm thinking to myself, here we are, 2 guys trying to, make it for themselves. I lost my mother. I had no money. I was broke. It was a tough time for me, struggling. And I'm sure he had whatever he was dealing with in his life, Yeah. And so I went in first and did the scene. They told me to wait outside. He goes in. He comes out. He's got like his shirt off. He's wearing a tank top. I said to myself, I'm going to get this part in my head. Then I hear my name, Michael, come in. And I'm like, I didn't get it. So I walk in slowly. I'm thinking I'm done. And he goes, sit down. Jerry goes, sit down. And it's funny because he had his feet up on the desk like a typical producer. Jerry Weintraub. He goes, kid, sit down. And Chris was standing. I never forget. Chris Kane. And he goes, who's your agent? And I tell him, he goes, you got the job. And I was like, I was like, what? I started to cry, like tears flowing. I jumped over the table. I jumped on his chair, hugged him, hugged Chris. I was bawling. And he goes, we'll be in touch. Congratulations. And I'll never forget this. This is something that's really, really interesting. I was walking out and I was at the highest of highs ever in my life. Because, it's so difficult to get any job as an actor. Yeah. And I see from behind the other guy walking away. And I said to myself, I've been that way so many times in my life where I've not gotten a job. And many times after Karate Kid, I didn't get a job. So I really felt for that actor, and I remember driving up over Coang and I just pulled over because my mother had passed on. And I just said, wow, Mom, we did it. We did it. We made it. And I couldn't believe it. And then, I had money. I would be able to pay bills. I would be able to, get a decent car. I was driving a car with ripped seats and dog hair everywhere. And just, and I remember going 3 days or 4 days later, we went into table read, you know, Hilary was a new actor. I didn't really know who she was, and all the young Michael Ironside I knew, of course, but Mr. Miyagi was there, Pat, and I was like, look at this guy. This guy's like an iconic figure. Yeah. And I'm sitting now. Now I went from nowhere in my life to sitting across from this guy at the same table, and I was blown away by it. I was like so humbled and thrilled to be in that company. And what a gentleman! What a leader and supporter of everyone. And he's a phenomenal actor. And you know, when you think about, you know, I said this to somebody else. I said he looks like he's doing nothing, but when you see it on the screen, it's this beautiful, beautiful thing. And I was really taken by Karate, the first one. Thought that was fabulous. For me, that was really, really a beautiful film. And he was wonderful, and Ralph was great, and Billy did a really nice job as my character, you know, the bully, and it was just a wonderful, and Martin, it was just a wonderful movie. So when I got the part, I said, well, I guess I got to go and look at this first one and see what this bad boy fits in. So, you know, of course, it's that thing. And, you know, I'm sure you have a question about that. So I'll let you ask the question and I won't continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, I was just going to ask you about, you know, you guys had a great cast, you know, like in the film with, you know, Pat, Hilary Swank, Ironside. Like, what was your experience? I mean, you kind of started going into it as far as, you know, Pat goes, but what was just your experience, you know, working with all these, you know, these great actors?
Well, yeah, it was, well, Hilary was phenomenal because Hilary had all the pressure on her. You know, here she is trying to reboot a franchise, and you know, it's a lot of pressure on a girl, a young girl, being a hero. By the way, she was the first. I will say it here, and I say it on every interview. She's the first Me Too girl ever beat up a bully like me. I got my butt kicked by her, and I'm okay with it. People always ask me, "How do you feel about that, Mike?" I said, "Listen,
it was awesome.
She won. Yeah, it was awesome. She won 2 Academy Awards. I got paid. Why not?" But Hilary worked really hard. You know, all the kata and all the stretching, and Mr. Johnson, Pat Johnson, was our stunt coordinator, and he worked really well with all of us. And there was a lot of pressure, you know, young actors trying to figure it out, and you know, but we did okay. And then, you know, there was a couple of moments where, like, I remember at the end we had to reshoot one of the scenes at the end of the movie, and people always ask me, you know, about Pat, and I said, you know, the one experience that comes back for me is my character was this bad guy.
Yeah.
But people write a lot about the nuance that I had in that character at the end, where you see him change, and none of the other characters had that change. So it was really important to me to have a little bit of, wait a minute, this guy Dugan is crazy. You know, my backstory, my character is a kid from a broken home. He had nowhere to go, and he ends up under the clutches of this guy. So I was doing the scene. It was at the end, and I got my butt kicked by Hilary, and and Dugan, he's like, "Do it again," or whatever, and I'm like, "No," and I started to cry a little bit. And you know, we did the take, and Pat called me over, and he said, "Michael," he says, "whatever you're doing, it's great. Keep doing it. It's beautiful." And it really gave me the confidence to kind of like just be free and try to go with that a little bit more. So I did it again, and just, you know, and just try to color because you had, you know, in a character like that, you don't really have a lot of time to color it with a vulnerability. And I really needed to get him a little bit. So that's why a lot of the fans, when they write to me, they say that to me, say, you know, you changed. You're one of the only characters that showed a nuance and a vulnerability as a bad boy. And a lot of people think that I'll end up with, you know, Hilary somewhere, or I follow Miyagi, or whatever that might be. So, yeah, that was really a tremendous experience. It's just really wonderful.
Yeah, it must have been, you know, especially as such a, you know, a young actor at the time, getting that praise from, you know, from Pat, you know, Mr. Miyagi himself, you know, giving you that praise. I'm sure that must have given you all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, Michael Ironside was great too, because Michael, I remember the first day on the set, we were doing the bungee jump thing, and then we come out of the school, and I break the doors open, and I'm whatever, and it was like we had to hit the mark. It was my first scene, and it was like in Boston, it was hot. It was like all these kids were watching. We were in Brookline High School in Boston, not far from where you are, right? And yeah, it was hot. It was summertime. I'm wearing this vest, and so I had to hit this mark, come out of the doors and hit the mark, and then say the dialogue, whatever, or just hit the mark. And Michael was testing me a little bit. He wanted to see that his protege, the bad boy, can hit it. And but I did it, and he was very generous with conversations, and what a wonderful actor. Been around a long time, and we talk about scenes a little bit here and there, and just he was really, really, really great too, just helpful, and he knew we were young actors trying to figure it out, yeah. And he was there for us, and it's really wonderful. And I hope that we come back maybe at some point, him and I, or maybe I'm on the other side against him. I don't know. We'll see. But very fortunate, Pat. Very, very, very fortunate.
As far as that scene goes too, the one where you guys are, you bungee jump, down from the ceiling or whatever. I know myself, I'm not completely terrified, but I'm definitely not a big fan of heights. So like watching that, it's just I'm yeah, no way, no way I would be able to do that. So yeah, could you just talk a little bit about as far as that scene?
Pat, I am worse than you. Trust me. Ask my wife. So what happened was I didn't realize how afraid I was of heights. When I was a kid, we used to go over the Whitestone Bridge into the Bronx to see my grandmother, and I would hide underneath the seat because I was afraid to go over it. I was scared. So I was weird. And every time I could go to an edge of a building, I panic, like that. So when we go travel, my wife and I don't go up to the whatever. But anyway, so we shot this in Tufts University in Boston, in their gym. So there's like a trestle that goes across the ceiling, and you can get yourself up and you kind of climb across it. So I'm the first one up because I'm the lead actor. So they call action. I start going up, and I freeze, and I panic, and I'm holding on like this. No, I can't. And Michael, I wouldn't let them pull me down. I said, no, they had to get a crane, one of the things to pull me down. I had such a hard time dealing with it. So what I did was we did a take a little bit lower, I couldn't. I did it, but I didn't do it as high onto the ceiling. I made it about 3/4. That this is as far as I'm going. So, but I think I actually fell in the. I didn't mind that part, falling into the pad.
Yeah.
The other sequence was when Eric and I were wrestling on the rooftop.
Yeah.
We were hanging on the edge of the building. So I said to Mr. Johnson, Pat, I said, Mr. Johnson, is there a way that maybe you can harness me or cable me? Because you see, I flip him over.
Yeah.
And if I take one thing, I'm gone.
Yeah, you guys.
Because momentum. So I remember the rehearsal. I'm like, what? I'm looking down 20 floors. I'm like, what is this? So he harnessed me in, and then so those experiences were a little bit crazy, but and then being on the docks when they blew up the car and
yep.
That was really fun.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that one too. Just like that whole when you blow up the car and then you get into that last fight with Hilary and stuff like that. How was that whole scene? Because I'm sure with the car exploding and stuff like that must have been kind of crazy.
It's funny. I can honestly say I was sitting on the docks by myself doing a rehearsal. That Pat didn't come in yet, and Hilary wasn't there yet. They didn't walk into the scene yet. And I was sitting there and I was like, this is unbelievable. This is classic. I mean, I'm sitting in the middle of this movie, at the end of this movie, it's on a dock somewhere. What an experience this was. Me and the fires are going, and you're in this big franchise. You're like, wow. You have to wrap your head around it. You got to wrap your head around you're actually, in this movie and trying to perform. So, that was a really, really interesting moment for me because it really, really made me be thankful to be there. Like, you know, how lucky was I at that time to be, how many kids, this is a great question that people say, and this is something that I say often in interviews, is that, you know, people have opinions of movies. And, you know, obviously there's a big, you know, this one's the best, and the Karate Kid, the next Karate Kid's the best, or that's not the best, and this one's the worst, and the three's the worst, whatever. And I say this always. Everybody has an opinion.
Yep.
I respect your opinion. And you know what? You're good for you. But I will tell you this. No matter what anybody ever say, I will defend this film forever because I was so grateful to be part of it, be part of history. Doesn't matter if they say good, better, and different. Anybody who's an actor would have loved to be in this part, in this film.
Oh, yeah.
It's a revelation as a young actor to say, I'm a part of this. And still, how great is this, Pat? 20, 30 years later, it comes back and people are calling me. And it's fascinating because one of the guys asked me, I was in Entertainment Weekly with Hilary. Remember they had the magazine Entertainment Weekly?
Yep.
So we were in the box office. There was a picture of me holding, that famous picture of me holding Hilary, you know, grabbing her, you know, and the box office was like Toy Story, True Lies, Forrest Gump, you know, and I'm like, clear and present danger. And I'm like, you wonder why it's so difficult to battle in movies. That's why I say now, somebody asked me, why do you think the Cobra Kai is so successful? I said, there's two reasons why, or maybe three. Netflix, it's very easily accessible, right? One, the pandemic made it really, really something to get away from the mindset of this, what's going on with this pandemic and the bad things that are happening. So it's an uplifting, fun kind of, you know, nostalgic look at people's lives back in the day and present. And the third one is it's a franchise that everybody knows, and their kids and the parents knew me, call me, and now their kids know me and call me. And it's fascinating. Like they all watch it because they all prepare themselves going from first one to ours to Cobra Kai. So we don't, you know, everywhere I ever went, people knew who I was because it's around, the movie's around. But you don't realize how big and how vast the world is. Now it's social media. Anybody can write to you.
Yep.
India, London, Paris, Italy, Germany, they all write. It's incredible to me. And it's like so unbelievable with these young kids. And they keep saying, when are you coming back? And they give me theories on what it is. You know?
Yeah,
no.
Like, well, I was just going to say, you know, kind of a similar story to as far as, you know, the next Karate Kid, just with like the box office competition. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it's like, it's one of my like favorite films, but like Hocus Pocus.
Sure, I know it. Bad
Yep.
Midler, yeah.
When that came out, you know, it didn't really do, you know, that well at the box office. It had some pretty stiff competition. And for some reason they released it, I think it was like in the summer when it was like a Halloween film, which was kind of, but
right.
That film, it's gone on, and now it's got, you know, it's kind of developed this like cult status over the years, kind of similar to, you know, like your situation where it's like, you know, maybe, you know, had a lot of competition when it first came out, but it's, you know, it's found its audience along the way. And you have, you know, the people who watched it back then, you know, they've grown up with it. Now they're showing their kids to it. So, and a lot of films, you don't get that. Like they don't have that audience. Sometimes they kind of just get forgotten. So, I mean, yeah.
You know what's great about our film too is it's a girl, and Hilary is so wonderful, and she's a role model for young girls. And when they see it, like one of the guys from London said to me, Michael, he goes, the girls love her. They hate you. They love her. And I laughed. He goes, they don't hate you. They love you, but they, you know, as a character. But, and then we were on Disney for many years, which was really fascinating because we got to, like some of the guys would call me and say, Michael, I used to watch Disney. I remember you. And, you know, I thought this was so wonderful. One of the guys said to me, he goes, you know, I started working out because of you. He goes, I started lifting weights and dressed like you because I thought you were just, you know, whatever. And I was like, wow, you know, you don't realize how many people you touch. It's like today, a guy wrote to me, because I dress like you, Michael, in the movie. I wear a t-shirt, black t-shirt, your hair, they always say you had the best hair, and I laugh. I said, you guys are funny. So the little thing that you don't think that people would ever pick up on, you know, and it's like, I remember this young girl, Mariela, she's one of my first fans, and she found me because my wife was on Instagram. She saw a picture of me. She's like, so she asked my wife, and she goes, yeah. She goes, oh my God, she's in Mexico City. So, you know, everybody universally knows this movie. And now that Hilary's won 2 Academy Awards, it doesn't hurt.
All right.
And then also the success of Cobra Kai. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is everybody is entitled to feel what they're going to feel about whatever film. But you know what, guys? Respect the actors that worked in that film.
Yeah.
Respect the people that worked hard. They did their best. Respect the film. Have an opinion, but be nice about the opinion. Don't be rude. Don't be disrespectful. You know what? I get it. It's really difficult for me to judge or to be disrespectful to an actor when I watch a film, because I know what it's like. And you know, I would say, and it's funny because I found fans defending The Next Karate Kid.
Yep.
And really standing up for it and saying how great it was and how, you know, what about me and da-da-da. It was just really, really beautiful to hear how many people were really, really support it and want to see it. Like, they want to see me, they want to see Hilary go on Cobra Kai and see what we would do. And I think it would be fascinating.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's something I'm actually thinking about doing, like a video like on that topic, like, you know, like separately at some point. But I've noticed it the past like couple of years, and I don't know if it's social media. It can be a great thing. It can be a bad thing at some
sure
too. But I've definitely noticed it over the past, especially the past couple of years, where, you know, like you said, everyone can have an opinion, but it seems like it's like they either hate something or they love it. There's no in between. And if you're the opposite, it's like, nope, you're an idiot. Like, your opinion is completely irrelevant. And it's like, why can't we just it's like, I like this movie, you don't like it? That's
exactly
fine.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because one of the guys said to me last week, he said, you know, Michael, he goes, you know, you watch the first one and the second one, and then, you know, when there's time away, like if that was a separate film, people would love that film, like it by itself, Next Karate Kid by itself. But there wasn't the ideal of what they think this is, whatever it is. And at the end of the story, it's Mr. Miyagi. It doesn't matter what they say, no matter how they say it. That franchise is built on those 4 movies. That's it. And I was explaining this with the canon and all this stuff that I didn't understand, and now I understand it. And yeah, I'm very proud of it. And listen, I've done other things that are different and more dramatic. But as a young actor, I wasn't totally sold that I wanted my career to be this. But when you look back, when I reflect back on the time when I got the part and what I was going through, the loss of my mom, and, you know, whatever, it really, really picked me up out of the gutter in a way, and really helped me. And so I have a fond feeling for this film. For me, it's a warm feeling because it really helped me through a tough time. And so I'll defend it no matter what anybody says. And it doesn't matter. To me, it's the experience was beautiful, and I treasure it.
And you said something there too that I, you know, kind of want to touch on like real quick too. I can imagine, like you said, like at one point, you know, you do a film like this, you know, in the Karate Kid series, like you have so many fans that really, you know, just love that franchise, love this film. And as an actor, I'm sure, you know, especially, you know, when you're younger and it's like, oh, like, you know, I want to do other things that people are like, oh, I just want to talk about the Karate Kid. I'm sure that can get a little frustrating. But like you said, now you've had time to sit and reflect on it. And, you know, you love talking about the experience and stuff like now. But was that at one point, was it kind of like, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want to talk about, you know, the other things that I'm doing?
So what happened was, I remember when I was doing, like, after I did the movie and I was on like Good Morning New York and I was on all these shows, and they kept saying, so you're going to be the next action star. And I'm like, I just want to be an actor. I just want to work and do good work.
Yeah.
You know, good work. That's what I want to do. And I wanted to get away from it. Honestly, I wanted to get away from that. I was trying, like, I did a lot of independent films, and got away from it. Did a lot of family-driven story, family stories and dramatic stories and stuff. But you know what's funny? What I realize now when I think about it is that this came back when I'm doing something that was so important to me. Isn't that fascinating how that happened at one time?
Yep. Yeah. Everything comes back around.
And my perspective is very, very different. It also, you know what it does, Pat? It introduces my fans to me personally, like behind me talking to you, and then also Ritornato, my personal stuff that I went through, why I left the business and why I left.
Yeah.
When you lose your parents and your sister and many things, and it's very difficult to try to focus on a career. I had a lot of maybe things would have been different if I could have not had to leave. Yeah. Because of that. But that's what it is, and I'll take it no matter what, and I'll embrace it. It makes me the man I am today. But also it really does. It opens my fans. My fans are so wonderful. Like, Michael, we'll support you no matter what. Want to see your movie? Want to see Ritornato? When is it? When are you going to be in something else? Doesn't matter. So it's like, wow, how grateful. I mean, how lucky am I? Really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it's when, you have a film like that, and like, yeah, maybe at the time it's like, oh, it's something that's like, I want to move on, but then like you realize it's like, but I have some great fans, from this experience. I had such a great experience making this film. So in the end, it's like, it was something that, was great. And like, I'll always like, you'll always truly remember. What do you, as far as like, to kind of get towards the end of, wrapping things up, because I don't want to keep you too long. As far as Cobra Kai, goes, what do you think that, Ned has kind of been up to, if you had to, visualize that, has been up to since the events of the next Karate Kid? And what do you see? What has he been up to this point, do you think?
There's a couple of schools of thought. One of the schools of thought was what I mentioned earlier, was that I think that he had he had a little bit of a nuance in his performance at the end, where he was vulnerable when he starts to realize that he was going the wrong way. And I think that he followed Miyagi. I think that he became part of, maybe mentored by Miyagi in a way, and I think Miyagi maybe took him under his wing. And if Miyagi passed away, maybe Ned carried on and was doing the same work that Miyagi was doing with Julie. And who knows, did he end up with Julie? Some people say he ends up with Julie, right? Like, he comes to grips with that. Some, I thought, how interesting, one of the things that I thought was fascinating was that they always say, like, with the Marvel universe, would it be fascinating if they had like this, like a big funeral with Mr. Miyagi, but all the characters and we're all there, intermingling, talking about what he gave to us, what he taught us as the characters. So I always thought that was a fascinating thing. And listen, at the other side, maybe Ned is, I always thought maybe he went and he taught underprivileged kids, or he worked with kids that like him, youths that have gone wild. He could have done that. And then the other schools that maybe he didn't. Maybe he's still a bad guy.
Doing, what he was doing. I like to think that what you were kind of saying, that he kind of came to his senses and that, was either taught under Mr. Miyagi and kind of went there in his wing, or even kind of was doing his own thing after, he passed to it. That would be really cool. And I hopefully, fingers crossed, we get to see you maybe, pop up on the show. Because I know at least they're doing a 4. I think there's like a 5 like planned out too. Like I could
I'll say this, it would be an honor for me. I'd be really, really fun for me. But I love what they're doing. And if they choose not to bring me back or whatever, I'm good with that, because I want them to be successful. The kids are great on the show. There's definitely a place for us. Definitely a place. I think I'd bring a lot of intensity and a lot of strength to the show. I think I'm a different kind of character than what they have.
Yeah.
Is a dangerous thing, and there's a quality that I have, I think, that I can add, which is interesting. And of course, Hilary's tremendous, and I would love for all of us to come to do one show together, you know, or 2 shows, or just being together once as it's like an homage to Mr. Miyagi, an homage to the universe. And listen, either way, I'm grateful to be part of it. And I'm grateful to my fans. And I'm grateful to guys like you who reach out and want to work with me and talk with me and support me. I'm grateful for that. And I'm very humbled that you even want to spend some time with me. So I'm always here to talk. And we'll see Ritornato shortly. And that's it, Pat.
Thanks.
Pop culture with Pat. Is that right?
That's right. You got it.
Come look at Pop Culture with Pat. He's the best. Meet me at the docks, McGowan. If you're brave enough to go.
Thanks, man. Yeah. And is there anything else as far as, you know, the fans go? Is there, you know, as far as social media, like obviously, you know, follow him on Instagram. If you want to, you know, throw out your Instagram handle, websites, anything like that.
Yeah, obviously you can reach me on Facebook. Also Ritornato _the_movie. That's me. And you'll see a lot of stuff about Ritornato the movie. You'll see a lot of stuff about Karate Kid and other films. Guys, write me there. I always write back. Send a message. We'll talk. I'll have a conversation with Pat again or anybody else. I'm open to it. I love the fans. Fans, thank you so much for your support, being behind me, being behind the Karate Kid series. I'm grateful to you guys because without you guys, we are not here. So thank you so much, Pat. Pop Culture with Pat.
Pop Culture with Pat. Thanks again, Michael, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. I obviously know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of projects down the line. So again, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule, and I will talk to you soon.
One more thing, Pat.
Yep.
You're not a Boston fan, are you?
No. Nope.
Yankee fan, right?
Yep.
All right. Just want to make sure because I know you're New Hampshire somewhere. Are you in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I'm in New Hampshire. Trust me, I get that. I get that all the time. They're like, "How can you live in New Hampshire and be, you know, not like the Boston teams?"
It's all right. I like you now better. Yankees, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. Thank the fans. Thank you, fans. Karate Kid, next Karate Kid, Cobra Kai. Good stuff.
Thank you,
See you guys.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. And thank you again, Michael, for joining the show.
Ciao, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Bye.